that we because of the unfortunately little encounters that we have had, as we were saying last week, for at the end of our last meeting, our Saturday meeting, we were saying that Mackenzie is a friend of a friend, a good friend of a friend, right? And we say this because for the little encounters that we have had, we haven't developed yet that long moments of talks. We have talked, we have connected several times, the work and everything. But it's good to hear that other mutual friends as well, have given us the ability to get to know him a little bit more, right? And tonight we have here our dear friend Mackenzie, and just to so we can connect better with him, Mackenzie Melo is a spiritist worker in Peabody, Massachusetts. Having been raised in a Spiritist family, he has been engaged in activities around Spiritism most since birth. And just like all of us, he is still, in our ways, striving to become the best version of himself. He is married, has two beautiful daughters, and is now the proud grandfather of their first grandson, a 2-year old that brings even more joy to their lives. Mackenzie will be speaking to us today about the widow's mite. And this is interesting because, not taking too much of your time here, Mackenzie, sorry. This is interesting because we have also dedicated a good portion of our Saturdays as well, right? Throughout last year and obviously giving continuation this year, talking about parables, talking about Jesus teachings, right? So instead of you getting stuck with me because I've been doing the most part of that, we have our dear friend Mackenzie with an enlightening message about this very important part of our gospel, right? So let us welcome our dear friend, and we will be opening as usual for questions at the end, comments as well, so that we can connect with him in a different way too. Thank you. Go ahead, Mackenzie. Thank you.
Unmute, I guess, and I hope everyone is hearing me, listening to me. I'd like first to thank, give a big thanks to everyone at SSB, especially to Daniel, which is the one that like Leo said, I'm a little closer. But it's and I've never been physically to Baltimore, but maybe one day, who knows, to really hug everybody and meet people like in person. Fortunately, we're not in COVID anymore, so we can meet in person, right? And thank you for the invitation, and thank you for being here to listen to me, to hear me, and as you can see there, I wrote this PowerPoint, and I was talking to Daniel this afternoon, and that was the title of the first part was the title of the talk. You see there, the widow's mite, and he thought he had made a mistake, and then he corrected it to the widow's mite, which is the correct name of the parable or of the story that happens with Jesus. This is not a parable in that sense that it was a story told by him, but that's actually a story that happened to him or with him while he was around, and is a teaching from Jesus. But it's also a parable because we tell it as a parable, as a story. So Daniel changed the name to the widow's mite, which is correct, the name of the passage. And so, therefore, what I did was I also, changed the title of my PowerPoint, but I left the old one because it is very important. First of all, I maybe everybody know, maybe not everybody know what might is, and when I say might, the pronunciation is exactly the same. I double checked on the dictionary, and the phonetics of both words are pronounced exactly the same way, just like we have. Right, right? And then we have rites of passage, both written differently, but same pronunciation. So they are homophones, as we call them in English. And So the widow's mite or greater merit. And you all will understand why I put this or greater merit there. Because when I was doing the study on this um, teaching of Jesus, um, I found this passage on another book by Allan Kardec, which is probably you've all heard of and you've all studied as well, which is Heaven and Hell, which is a study on the life and the future life and how those spirits live in the spirit world and our relationship between and what are the consequences of our actions and so on. So there's a chapter in this book that's called the penal code or the penal code of life to come, depending on the translation. It's on it's on the first part, is chapter 7. The second part of this book is full of stories of spirits who discarnated and come to tell how is life for them in the spiritual realm, which is very, very, very interesting. But why am I citing this? Because actually, when I pass on to the first slide, well, this is the parable, which I'm not going to use it right now, but I'm just going to show this, and then I'm going to tell the story, and I'll come back. And I have found a small piece of this chapter, number 7, on the book Heaven and Hell. Um, that it's very, very connected to the story of the widow's mite. And just as a reference there, I just put it there so that you can all see. Allan Kardec in Heaven and Hell, Part One, Chapter 7, item number 12, which he talks about this. And I'm gonna go back to this shortly, so that I'm gonna spend a few minutes there. But just for us to remember the story, and hopefully everybody knows the story, but might. In other translations of the Bible, instead of the widow's mite, they say the widow's offering, which is, an offer that she does. And I'm just going to read this passage. It's very brief. It's in Luke chapter 21, verses 1 to 4. And then they say that as Jesus looked up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury. He also saw a poor widow put in two very small copper coins. This is her offering. This is her mite. Truly, I tell you, Jesus says, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth or of their fortune, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. So I guess that we all have heard this story, maybe more embellished, told with different words and so on. But the story is very simple. Jesus is there at the temple, seeing the people come to the place where they put their offerings, and they see these people coming, the rich ones coming and giving a lot of money. Then she sees this woman, a widow, and she puts two small coins. And these small coins, when we research, based on tradition, they say that it's worth almost nothing, monetarily speaking. It is like I think it's 1/100th of a day's work. So it's like 1 cent or 2 cents. So these days, which is the lowest amount of money that we can carry, is of course zero. But other than zero is 1 cent and then 2 cents, right? So let's say she put 2 cents. And what is interesting is that Jesus points out to her and says she gave more than all the others are giving. Why? Because she put in, out of her poverty, out of what she needed to live on, and um, they offered from what's abundant to them, that they don't need that money for anything. They can survive without their money. They can keep living. They can keep working. They can keep eating. They can keep doing anything. So this is the basis of the story. And I uh, when I was studying to create this topic for a meeting here in our spiritist group in Peabody, um, like I said, I wanted to look at this story from a different perspective, or maybe find something a little bit, that would touch me, and then would could probably touch someone else. And then I found, like I said, I found this passage from the book Heaven and Hell. And what I found interesting is that I didn't find this passage um, straight reading the book Heaven and Hell. I was reading another book that I really like. It's called in Portuguese. I don't know if this book was already translated. I kind of searched and I couldn't find it. It's called Divine Justice. It's also a book written by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, and it's called, like I said, Divine Justice. In one of the chapters is chapter number 8, and we're going to cite it in the other slides, and I'm going to show pieces of it in other slides. What this book is about is what Chico Xavier was doing at his time was there were some meetings, weekly meetings or monthly meetings, where they were studying books from the codification, and Emmanuel would come sometimes and would take a passage from one of these books, in this case, Heaven and Hell, and then he would write a text about these passages the same way he does with our daily bread, these books of messages that we have in our spiritist centers. Um, and then he writes a text about that is explaining parts of it. So this book, Divine Justice, it's all about the book Heaven and Hell, where he gets passages of it and gives us explanations, which are deep and profound in very short messages. I love this specific one, but the book is wonderful. I love this book specifically. So, uh, but before we get to the explanation, let's read what Kardec was saying about this in this item number 12, and let's make this a little bigger so people can read it with me. And I just want to point out that these highlights, naturally the colors are mine. I put these colors so that I want to focus on parts of it. But if you see the italics at the end there where it says according to its worth, those italics are from the original book. Those italics were Kardec that put there, but the colors are mine, but the italics. So he wanted us to focus on that. But I'm going to read it, and then let's go piece by piece, part by part, so we can have a better idea of what Kardec wants to say. There is no absolute or uniform rule as to the nature and duration of the punishment. The only general law is that every wrong will be punished, and every meritorious act will be rewarded according to its worth. So, I guess if you read it a few times while I'm reading here, and while this is up there, you'll get an understanding of what it is. And but what I'd like to point out here is that is very, very, to me, very, very important, and it caught my eye, is that he starts by saying that there isn't, there isn't, and this has to be very clear. There is no absolute or uniform rule. So no matter how far and how much we want to search for it, he's stating very clearly that there is no absolute or uniform rule as to the nature and the duration of a punishment from deeds, from things that we did, and that we will have consequences to it. So let's start thinking on this about how we do it, things we do that have consequences. It doesn't matter if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. Every act that we do has a consequence, right? So we will receive something back. Kardec here, because of the chapter, is focusing on punishment. However, I have to say that what he's writing here, it doesn't matter if we're talking about punishments or rewards. The idea is always the same. There is no uniform rule for nature and duration of punishment. So he says the only general law is that every wrong will be punished, in every meritorious act will will have a reward, will be rewarded. He says that what he's saying in a different way here is that there is cause and there's consequence, right? There's cause and there's effect. That's what he's saying here. But we don't know, in what he is also saying, that we don't know when, what will be the nature and what will be the duration of some or maybe most of the consequences of acts that we take with our lives, right? So some people, for example, oh, I get sick because I got sick because I did this, or oh, I'm gonna be exposed to a person that's sick, let's say, right? And then I say, okay, there will be a consequence. There will. Viruses will come into my body because I'm in contact with a person that has viruses, so I will get viruses. But how will my body react to that? How long will that disease be with me? How long will I be sick? Will I die? Will I not die? So it is almost, if we take that analogy, as if we can think about this, that what Kardec is saying is, okay, there will be a consequence, there will be a punishment for a bad deed, but who am I to say how is it going to be? When is it going to be? What's going to happen? What I find this to be very interesting and very important is that, unfortunately, some of us, and I'm talking about me, growing up in Spiritism, as Leo said there, that I heard so many times people, and me myself, I did it as well, because when we learn from young age, we repeat stuff because we tend to not think too much about it. But then when we grow up and we think about things differently, we may review things and then, okay, so I don't agree with that 100%, so I change a little bit and I change my understanding. So people would say, okay, oh, this person did this, oh, oh, is suffering this is because in the previous life he killed his mother, or he killed someone, or he did this to someone. Oh, he's doing this now, so he will suffer this. He will go with. We don't know. We really don't know. There's a very interesting story in one of these stories by Chico Xavier, or by one of the spirits, not by him, where he says, the story is the following: the guy did a lot of bad things with his hands in a previous life, and then when he incarnated, when he was here reincarnated, he agreed that at one point in his life, um, he would lose his hands, because that's how, so that he could feel the pain of having used his own hands for evil, for doing bad to a lot of people. And then he started working and he started doing stuff, and he was, but in this next life, he decided to, he understood throughout life that he needed to help other people. So he started from an early age to really use his body and his life to help other people. Then comes around the time where he was supposedly, gonna lose his hands, and there's a big accident, and then when he wakes up, he lost one of his fingers. He didn't lose his hands. And then when he finally learned about this later on, in when he returned to the spirit world, they said, you did so much good and you were doing so much good to so much people, that you reverted everything that you were supposed to lose, because you changed it. So we never know what's going to happen, because it depends on us, it depends on how we act, it depends on what we take in and how we put out, right? So what Kardec is really saying here is that we don't know. So don't judge. Don't look at other people and say, oh, you're going to be this, you're going to be this, or you're suffering this, because no, we don't know. We are not judges, and we don't know everything that happens in other people's lives. We don't know why they act and why they do what they do. So that's one way of looking at this and saying, hey, okay, if Kardec is telling me this, right? He's telling me that not only that I don't I should not judge, or I should not, tell other people that they are suffering because of this, or they are suffering because of that. No, let's just embrace them and say, okay, you're suffering, let me suffer with you. and let's go through and let's go together through this so that we don't waste more of our time just thinking about the past or thinking about what's going to happen. No, let's start changing right now. But also, every meritorious act will be rewarded. I love this every. He doesn't say if it's big, if it's small, if it's because somebody's forcing me, if it's because every will be rewarded. Some might receive just a mite, right? Just the 2 coins. Some might receive more, and maybe, or not maybe, and this is one of the reasons why it's the one of the titles of tonight's talk or today's talk is greater merit, because some of the stuff, have different weights depending on what and how we do it, right? So, but he's not judging here the amount. What he's saying is that every meritorious act will be rewarded. But then he puts into italics, he highlights it, and I highlighted it according to its worth, according to how much it is worth, according to how much it is that thing that we're doing, it is valued. And it doesn't matter if it's a good or a bad one. There are even in our law, in our material law, depending on how, let's say, a person killed another person, that person that killed the other one will be judged. But there are many different situations for why and how one person killed the other, right? Let's say a person planned killing and went through and killed. That person will be judged in a way. That's let's imagine that a person didn't want to kill, never thought of killing, but for whatever situation the other person came and attacked her or him, and then that person ended up killing the other one. That person will be judged, but will be judged differently than this one, right? And there's a person that was not even thinking about it, but killed the other one inadvertently because something fell from his hands out in apartment building, for example, and it fell close to the person, and a person passing by was killed. That person will be judged, but it will be completely different judgment, right? So according to the worth of the action, even for the bad things that happen, judgments will be different because the actions are worth differently. The result is similar. 3 people were killed, but how, why, what it was done, it has a completely different weight. And if it has a different weight even in here on our earth with our still precarious laws, imagine in the laws of God, which are perfect, which sees everything and knows what goes inside our hearts. How is it that we are going to be judged more harshly or less harshly? I can judge someone and say, okay, you're guilty. God can come and say, hey, you're not seeing not even 1% of the story. So why are you judging that harshly? Right? So it is a teaching for us. It is a teaching for us to try to understand that the worth of stuff, it's not only through our eyes, it's through so much more that we don't, most of the time we don't even see, that we cannot understand sometimes how much it is worth. And that's why then here is where we see, or we start seeing, I hope that we start seeing the connection between this passage from heaven and hell and the widow's mite, right? Because that's what Jesus says, right? At the end, he says that it's the worth what she did. And how much did she put in? 2 cents? There are 2 cents in for us, right? Uh, I bet that a lot of you has um, a lot of you have your own 2 cents to add to what I'm talking about, right? There's a current expression of that. Let me add my grain of salt there. Let me add my 2 cents to the story, and so on, right? So we we all have our 2 cents. Some 2 cents are worth more than other 2 cents, correct? Even when we are adding stuff to what someone is talking, my 2 cents might be less important than the 2 cents of Daniel, for example, which has more experience, or Leo, or whoever it is, right? So, this worth of how we do it, what we do it, it's not for us to judge. It's for God to judge. It's for the eternal laws to judge. And then we have to do the best that we can. And we have some tips. We have some tips on how do we gather, how do we understand what is worth more and what is less, what is worth less. So let's not focus on what is worth less. Let's focus on what is worth more. So when I think about, for example, the widow's mite again, the story of the widow's mite, right? Of the power, of the might of the widow's mite, right? When I think about it, I think about those rich people, those rich men, those rich that were donating stuff, that were giving out of what they don't need. And I also heard, and I also made comments, and I'm talking about myself, but I also heard a lot of people also saying this. Um, um, oh, it's worth much more the what the widow did. Yeah, but I bet that the SSB would not survive if all of us that are sitting here now were were widows and could only donate 2 cents to SSB, right? It would not survive. Just like our Spirit Center here, it would not survive if we could only donate 2 cents. So, what is the worth that Jesus is talking about? It's not the worth, the monetary worth. So, he was not complaining or he was not saying bad things about the ones who are giving more physically, monetarily. He was not saying a bad thing about them. No. He was just making a comparison to internally how we can see that. But going even further, going even deeper in the teaching, let's think about what if, and I'm not saying that it is because I really don't believe it, because Jesus is one of those kinds of people that when he looks at us, right, and I'm looking at the camera, so you're seeing that I'm looking right into your eyes right now. When he looks at us, he knows who we are. He really knows who we are. He knows if we're lying, if we're not lying, even if we are the best actors in the world, he will know it, right? And there, we know that there are some people that we cannot even look in their eyes, right? They're our parents sometimes, some friends that when we look in their eyes, our actions they speak for us, and they will notice, correct? So when Jesus looks into the widow's heart, he knows, and he says that. And if he says that, it's because that's what happened. What's happening? But let's imagine that we saw that of a person that comes to the Spirit Center, to a temple, to a church, whatever. Then we see a poor person coming there and putting like 2 cents or 5 cents. And we say, oh my God, that person is probably giving only 5 cents because that's the only thing that she can afford. How do I know that? I don't know. There's no way for me to know. I would have to go after the person, follow the person, see if the person can or cannot, and then what she, maybe could be that one person that's very poor or thinks or shows to us that they are very poor so that they can impress us so that we can give money to them because they, do you understand, do you know where I want to get to? So it's not about giving more or less, and it's not about the quantity, it's about what goes in our hearts. And he was not saying that the other ones are not giving because they want. We need the money. The temples need the money. So what if a person has more than other and he wants to give more? There's nothing wrong with it. We have to accept it, and we should accept it, and we should encourage people to donate to causes that they believe in. And we should get this from what Jesus is trying to tell us. But sometimes we judge the other way around. We see a poor person as if the person is good in heart, and we see a rich person as if the person is bad in heart. But is it? How do we get to that thought? How do we get to that impression? It is for us to understand within our hearts and really think about it and say, how is my heart feeling when I'm donating to the center? And because that's what's more important. If I'm doing what I can, I'm doing what I can. It doesn't matter if the other person thinks, or this person thinks, or that other person thinks. because the judgment is not from other people. The judgment is my conscience. And if we think about what the Spirit is saying, the law of God is in our conscience. God is everywhere, and the law is around us. So it's from me, not from the others, right? So, but let's move on because otherwise I'm going to be here on one slide or two slides only. So I'm going to move to the end of that message that I mentioned, where uh, uh, Emmanuel starts with that passage that I just copied from the book Heaven and Hell. So he says at the very end of the message, all goodness, whatever it may be, is a blessed credit in favor of the one who practices it, who does it, in favor of the one who does that act of goodness. And what I find very powerful here is the same idea that I used on Kardec's piece, is that he says, all goodness, whatever it may be. If I'm doing something and I'm giving something to someone that is in need, that goodness will is a blessed credit in my favor because I helped the other person. Even sometimes if I didn't want to help, but that person might pray for me, right? That family might pray for my family, and that will come back at one point. It may not work inside of myself at that moment, but it's a credit that's there and say, oh, you did good to a lot of people. So this will come as your credit. This will speak for you, even if you didn't want it. It might be worth less than if you really wanted and you were invested in it, but it is worth something. So we tend to keep looking at the bad side of things instead of looking at things from a perspective of things that will be or that will grow, that will be better, that will be waiting for us when we do it. We tend to see that in the bad things. Say, oh, this is going to happen to me if I do this. If but same thing, if I keep doing the good things will come. Good things will happen. Good things will arrive, right? Because when we have this sentence there, again, he says, and he puts into commas. If we read the sentence again, he says, all goodness is a blessed credit. All goodness, everything is a blessed credit. Everything good that we do is a blessed credit. But he puts into commas to add to the all goodness, so that he wants to for us to be very clear, whatever it may be. 2 cents, two small copper coins. You see what I'm getting here? It's just very important for us to to understand this, right? That it is for us to do the best that we can at all times. If we can't do it, that's fine too. But if we try to do it, it already counts. It's the effort. Kardec says that the true spirit is not the one that's perfect. No, it's the one that makes the effort to become a better person. So we are making the effort. We are trying to do. We are really putting persevering in putting the effort. I think that's the best word really. Right? It's let's do it. Let's try to do it because it's worth doing it, right? It's worth spending minutes or spending hours, whatever, how much time we want to try to improve ourselves. It is worth it because it is a blessed credit in favor of the one who practices it. Let me see how much time I have. I have a few minutes, so I think we can get to the end. Hopefully, we can get to the end. Um, but he continues and he says, it pass. From crumbs to fortune, from crumbs to wealth, offered out of love, there is an entire range of joy and light. From crumbs to fortune, from two small copper coins to the wealth that they offered. there's an entire range of joy and light. So if we, and I'm gonna try to do something here if it works. I'm gonna write something. I never remember how to do this. Let me see here. Choose a highlighter and do this. Do you see this? I guess you do, right? It's kind of yellowish here, highlighting this. If we remove this part from the sentence, let's read it without this part. From crumbs to fortune, there is an entire range of joy and of light. It makes total sense, right? It's a complete sentence. It's a sentence that makes sense in itself. Doesn't need that offered out of love. But that offered out of love is the point. Because if we offer out of love, it's a different type of offering, right? It changes completely. Like I said, if I put two coins, but I put those two coins being forced is one thing. But if I put these two coins because those are my two coins and I really want to use them, it's something else. If I put those two coins and those two coins I was going to go out and buy something for me to eat, but I prefer to give to someone that needs more food than I do at this moment, it's worth more. That's what Jesus is telling us in the story, right? You've heard stories similar to the one that the boy is very very hungry and he has a brother, and the brother is very very hungry. One is older than the other, right? And the brother cuts the bread that they receive in half, right? And then gives the half of his bread, of the bread, to his younger brother, and then the younger brother eats, and he uh, is eating his own half as well. The younger brother is very very hungry. He eats it very fast. He eats it, and he looks at him, and he's still very hungry. And then his older brother, who was faking that he was eating, got his other half, cut it in half, and then gave to the brother again. And the younger brother ate it, and then he said, "Are you still hungry?" And said, "No, I'm not hungry anymore." "Oh, so I can eat this other piece." And then he ate the piece. So he's bigger, he needs more food, but at that moment he noticed that his younger brother was hungrier than him, and he needed more, so he gave it more to him. That's offering out of love. It's completely different than we are if we are forcing it to be done, right? And maybe we have done stuff like this in the past, maybe we haven't. It doesn't matter. What matters is, do we understand this? Are we starting to feel this on the inside? Because this needs to come out of love, not come out because Mackenzie is saying, not because I read this beautiful story. No, it needs to become part of ourselves. And then we do it, and then when we do it, we don't feel as if we are doing. And you understand why I'm saying this, because on the next slide, he will say, and I repeat this, the two first sentences to get to the last one, and I'm going to read it in sequence. So he says, all goodness, and we already read this together, all goodness, whatever it may be, is a blessed credit in favor of the one who practices it. From crumbs to fortune, offered out of love, there is an entire range of joy and of light. Nevertheless, all goodness practiced with sacrifice has a greater merit. So he comes and he's growing. He's making things bigger. He's making things bigger for us to understand what are the steps of how much we sacrifice, how much we do, and what can we do that's worth more than what we do now. And what I understand is that when he says practiced with sacrifice, it is not a sacrifice for to show off. It is not a sacrifice to so that other people know that we're doing. It is a sacrifice that's done out of love. Looking at this story that I just told of the boy that gave his bread, or half of a half, like a quarter of his bread, that's what he ate, and he gave three-quarters of a bread to his younger brother, is this a sacrifice? I would say that it is, because he needs more food than the younger brother, right? Physically speaking. But at that moment, he was willing to sacrifice his food to give to the younger brother because he thought that he needed more than what he did at this moment. And he probably thought, I will be able to do something else. And I'm not going to be worried about this right now. So he did it out of sacrifice. We can use the word sacrifice because it is, say, materially speaking, earthly speaking. But is it sacrifice for him? When you're full, you're completely full and whole with love, do you really think of being, of sacrificing, or do you think of love, pure love for that situation? To me is love. That's the word that comes to me. So what Emmanuel there is trying to show us is that all goodness made out of pure love, that to a lot of people will look like sacrifice, that goodness, that thing, that act of goodness, that good thing that we did is is and sorry, not is, has greater merit, meaning that the chiching on the credit that he just spoke, right? That the bank will be full in my, but I don't need, probably I won't even need it. I will probably use that money to help other people because that's what my mind will always think. Oh, if there's someone that needs more than I do, I will go help it. Help that situation, help the person, help the other. Of course, that we have to, like, just take a deep breath now and say, people might be thinking, okay, so Mackenzie, you're saying that you should we should give everything to every, no, 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 I'm not saying this. I'm saying that we, of course, that we need to take care of ourselves. Of course, there's not going over this. I have to take care of myself. But where do I balance this? This is each one of us. We will choose that level. Jesus, God, is not forcing us to do. We choose what level of how much I give to me and how much I give to the others. That's for me. You know, if we look at the life of Chico Xavier, for example, right? He died and he had no big houses, no big mansions, nothing, 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 zero. Everything that he did was for the others. But he had his house, he had his life, he had his retirement fund that he would live by. He would eat moderately. He would have his own things. Everything else was donated. A lot of these studies that we do here are based on what Chico Xavier spent hours and hours and hours, that he could be sleeping, he could be doing something else, and he was doing this. And these days, sometimes we see so many people from so many different religions, right? Getting so much money, becoming so rich, having so much stuff. And there's no problem. It's their lives. They chose it. That's it. How do we choose? It's for us. It's for us to decide. It's for us to see. I'm glad that there are people that are rich, that can give, that can donate, that can work, and then can help other people. I'm glad for that. If I can do it, I do it. If I can't do it, I won't do it. It's my personal choice. What Emmanuel is just saying here, and what Jesus is just saying here, is that where our heart then, like in the Wizard of Oz, right? Home is where the heart is, right? So, or maybe it's some other movie or some other book, but there's no better place than my house, right? And where is my house? My home is where my people are, right? It's not where I think it is, right? So what's in my heart is what counts, what really counts and what's worth. So if a rich gives a lot of money to the temple where Jesus tells the story, that's perfect. They will use the money to keep the temple running, to keep the temple going. If the poor widow gives two, it's great for her in the way she is doing. And those 2 cents might help the temple, the center, the church, in a different way, in a completely different way that we don't know of, right? Attracting good spirits, attracting good vibrations, and we never know the impact of certain actions in our lives. So when when Emmanuel finishes this with these 3 sentences, the message is not too long, and I'm just going to share the screen of the message. I'm not going to read it. That's not the objective of sharing this. It's just for you to see that the message is not too long. You're going to see that there are only 2 slides with like 8 couplets like this. So I can read one of them. Like, for example, you send medicine to the sick person, or to a sick person, right? We had to translate this because I didn't find, like I said, the book translated already. As much as possible, however, extend some words of encouragement and hope. So that's what he is trying to show us in this message, right? You send medicine to the sick person, you give medicine to a person. But maybe a greater merit, maybe, is as much as possible to extend some words of encouragement and hope. Because a medicine, it works right there. But words of encouragement and hope works much longer, for much longer time, right? So that's Emmanuel making us think about this, making us think about what is the worth of what I am doing and how much do I want to do it. So, for example, you forgive anyone who offends you. As much as possible, however, take the initiative in reconciliation, cultivating humility. So, okay, a person comes and offends you, you forgive, but you forgive and you stay away. Emmanuel asks us to take the next step. That's what Jesus asks us to take as the next step, right? He always asks us to take the next step. Go and sin no more, right? He says, come and follow me, right? He's always asking us to go further, to give the next step. Emmanuel is asking us here to, as much as possible, take the initiative in reconciliation, cultivating humility. What's cultivating humility? It's saying, okay, I'm not going to be proud enough to not accept his apologies. I am gonna, and I'm gonna try my best to be um, to be to reconcile. It is hard. I'm not saying that it is easy. No, it is not easy. But it is what the teaching says. Although we tend to see sometimes as just as a matter of how much we do it and how in our hearts, but it's not just for physical things. It's for who we are, right? And then he finishes with those 3 sentences that we spent more of our time discussing it. All goodness, whatever it may be, is a blessed credit in favor of the one who practices it. From crumbs to fortune, offered out of love, there is an entire range of joy and of light. Nevertheless, all goodness practiced with sacrifice has a greater merit. And that's the might of the mite. That's the might of the widow's mite. It is for us to understand that no matter what we do, if we do it with our heart, if we do it with love, if we do it in sacrifice, we are building a better future for ourselves, a better future for the ones who surround us, and a better future for our community. There's a story that I heard that I never know where I heard it from, but that says that after Jesus talking and saying that the widow's mite was bigger than the ones that were given, there's another story that says that Jesus kept walking around the temple and there was another woman behind everybody after everybody left that was even poorer than the widow, and she didn't have one single coin to give, but she was there. Nobody seen her, and she was cleaning and um, searching for the word. She had a broomstick and she was sweeping away the temple, and that's what she was giving. And she was the one that was giving much more. than all the other ones. So it's giving out of ourselves. It doesn't matter if it's physically, if it's mentally, if it's spiritually. No, doesn't matter how. What matters is, doesn't matter what it matters. What matters is how we do it. If we do it out of pure love, the more we get to that, the more we can get to that, the more we will receive those benefits, those credits. Not that I'm looking for credits, not that we should be looking for credits. We are doing out of love. When we kiss our daughters, when we kiss our sons or my grandson, I'm not expecting him to kiss me back. I just want to give love to him because that's what love is. Love wants to do it. Love wants to be there, right? Daniel just told me that he is expecting another son or another daughter for April or whatever. He just wants to hug the little baby, right? And it's why? Because he wants the baby at that moment to love him back. No, he just wants to love because that's what how love works, right? And it is not sacrifice; it is love. And only if we could live that love with everything, right? So the widow's might or greater merit, it's for us to love and do things outer out of love. Do things out of love. Love out of love. Love. Do out of love. Donate out of love. Let's make things. Let make let's make things out of love, for the love of God, for the love of love itself. And I hope that um, you all heard me. I don't see anybody there. Just know that the screen moves back and forth. And I hope that people are listening to me. Otherwise, I would have heard something here. So um, I suppose that everybody heard me. But more than heard me, I hope that I was able to be understood and comprehended. And I'm really glad that I had the chance to be here, even if it's only virtually, but to be here with you guys for tonight, for this afternoon.
Thank you, Mackenzie, for this amazing perspective that you gave us about the widow's mite. Um, Alba, can you please turn on the light? We'll turn on the light, folks. So thank you for this great explanation and for diving as well into other examples that we can go back to. As you mentioned, yes, I believe that the book from Emmanuel is not in English yet, which is an amazing book, kind of like an extension of the Living Spring collection, right? Where we Emmanuel takes a part of the Bible, piece of the Bible, and then explains. But it's more related to the, as you said, the book Heaven and Hell. Just trying to give this as a highlight because we can always go back, to these references and read, right, to dive into more into the teaching. So thank you for really helping us understanding this a little bit better and making us a better person, right, in terms of what we give, how we give, this love that you just described as well, that we need so much nowadays. What I would like to do is to open up for questions, comments that you may have, as well as online. We'll kind of go back and forth for whatever we have, just so we can take the time to formulate our questions here or comments. We'll share one, the first one that we have in the comments that we have from the web as well. And you will see here, Mackenzie, on the screen. This is from our friend Paula. She says, good reminders. As judgment occurs instantly, what universal steps do you suggest to turn it around or let it go?
Uh, one of one of the things that comes to my mind is when when Kardec asks the spirits on codification, what is charity according to Jesus? So what was Jesus thinking when he pronounced the word charity, which is also the word love, right? And he says, and the Spirit says, benevolence, um, indulgence, and forgiveness, right? That's what the Spirit's saying. So when we and I'm thinking about uh, things that I notice that I did wrong. The first thing that I have to remember is that I have to be benevolent to myself. If I want to be benevolent to others, I have to be indulgent to myself if I want to be indulgent to the others. And I have to understand that I have to forgive myself if I want to forgive others. What I'm not saying is that I just, because some people misunderstand when they say that I need to love myself, that I should accept everything that I do as something. So, what I understand about this judgment that happens is that I have to remember that I am a human being, that I make mistakes, that I have issues, that I'm not perfect, that I am not going to make everything right the first time that I do, that I'm still a child in progress, and that I might fall a few times before I really learn how to walk. So I have to remember this, not to use this as an excuse to fall again in purpose, but to remind myself that, okay, I made a mistake. Now I will strive even harder not to make the mistake again. Turn around, ask for forgiveness for whoever or whatever situation it was, try to remedy the situation, and do it differently next time. That's how I show myself that I'm trying to do, that I'm putting the effort to become a better person. And that so I am not judged as harshly as I'm judging others for when they fall. So when I fall, I can understand better the fall of others. And then I can, relating to this, I can then look at this and say, and look at myself and say, okay, I can do it. I can make it better next time. That's one of the ways that I could maybe respond to this. And that's universal, I guess.
For a way to learn from one's own mistakes, right? Thank you. Anyone else would like to ask a question, make a comment? You good?
Look, I
Look,
bite, I
I
bite,
bite,
but I'm
but I'm
virtual.
virtual.
So
So
don't
don't
worry.
worry.
Hi, Mackenzie. Do you think that the goodness that we do in sacrifice can at some point evolve to something that we practice in a more natural and spontaneous way, that we stop feeling it as a sacrifice?
I
I
truly
truly
believe that.
believe that.
I
I
really,
really,
I
I
really do.
really do.
When
When
I
I
think of
think of
Jesus, for
Jesus, for
example,
example,
and
and
look at him, and we say it was the biggest sacrifice that someone ever did for humanity. I By knowing what we know about Jesus, I don't think that he thought of that as sacrifice. I really don't. I cannot see it. I cannot see it. I apologize to anyone that sees it. But I don't see it. And I know some people, and I know this is probably not a very good recommendation, because the series is not, let's say, very religious but I just saw this series on TV. It's called Dirty John. It's a very sad story, but I heard a podcast about this same story, and the mother of the lady that suffered in the hands of this Dirty John, she is fine. She didn't die, nothing. But the story is very sad. Um, the mother of the lady, she, and I don't know if this shows up in a series, because I heard the podcast more recently, so I remember more of the podcast. She had another daughter. The daughter was killed by her husband. She wanted to leave her husband, and the daughter was killed. Imagine the pain of this mother, right? She forgave that man, but not only she forgave that man, she went to this man's judgment, and um, m- uh, his condemnation was much lower because of so many good things that she had to say about him. Um, Not saying that it is right or that it is wrong. I'm not saying that she is correct or she is right. She is wrong. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we don't know how much love can affect what we do. And when we see some things like this, and we all heard stories of people that forgave the other ones that killed, like parents or kids, and then they went together, went to jail to find the person, to have no meetings with that person, and they started became friends. The other one, the one that perpetrated the crime, that killed, got his life completely transformed after these meetings. And because his that's another story. I just jumped it for a story. The other mother, the mother that went after this guy that killed her son, they started working together to promote peace, and she adopted the murderer of her son as her son, and they walked together, promoting peace, showing that it is possible to love. So yes, I really believe it is. Is it easy? No, it is not easy. It is not easy, but it is possible. We just need to practice. We start from the small things. We really start from the small things, and then we will get there at one point.
Anyone else? Daniel, anyone from the web? No one else? Alba, 1 second.
Hello, Mackenzie. I'm here in the back. You see me? Thank you so much. Such a beautiful reminder about what we have and we can give, right? I was thinking when we are navigating Espiritism and we want to transform ourselves and be a better version of ourselves, sometimes we fall in this loop of, oh, look at me, I'm doing good. I'm doing all these beautiful, wonderful things. And when something bad happens, then we are expecting uh, some sort of return from the universe because we already did good and something bad is happening to us. So, how can we get out of that selfish set of thought? You know, I don't know if I make myself clear.
Yes, you
Yes,
did.
you did.
Um, it is not easy, first of all, and I repeated that it is not easy for a few different things, and I really believe that it is not easy, because it doesn't matter what, we are always expecting responses, and we are always expecting something back. That's very normal, very natural, because that's the kind of world that we live in. We are always doing something and we are expecting something back. So let's imagine here, I mean, you come, I do that joke sometimes in my work, at my in my office. When I get there, a person comes to me and say good morning. I say, why? Right? So like, and then I started laughing, right? Just because it is very interesting that we expect the other person to say good morning, right? And then when we do something different, it is what's going on, right? Why? How? Sorry, let me turn these lights on here. um it is we expect something, right? And if we are doing something good, we expecting something good back. That's very normal, and that's natural for us to expect this, right? But let's say we are expecting the summer to be hot, but then the summer is hotter than we expect, and then we complain. Or the other way around, expect the winter, and oh, the winter is hotter than it was. Oh, that's good, right? So we are always expecting something, and not everything comes to the way we are expecting. And I guess that's one of our problems, our issues, is that expectation, right? Because we are expecting. So the thing is that things go in cycles, right? Everything is it's in cycles, and we never know what the cycles are. We really never know what the cycles are, how much what we do now, when it will be applied to, right? And as we are learning, tests are still coming. And it's just that our expectation is probably higher than what it should be. Not that we shouldn't have expectations, we should have expectations, but if we don't leave the expectations here, outside of the frame, right? If we leave them here, maybe, and they get a little bit closer, then it's fine. But we are always expecting that everything will be perfect soon. I'm doing it. I'm doing good. So yeah, how do I get out of this is probably what you're asking, right? What I always think is that about this saying, and Chico Xavier uses this in a different way too, but he says, everything passes, right? Everything passes, right? And then there's this saying, I think it's a Buddhist saying, or that I really love. It says, oh, if you're are you going through a bad thing in life? Don't worry, it will pass. And I love this, right? But it doesn't stop that. The saying continues, and he says, are you going through a very good phase in your life? Don't worry, it will pass. You know what I mean? I love this because it makes our brain like, what is he trying to say? He's trying to say that things are not permanent. Things have this impermanence, right? That things change, and we just have to live with the flow, right? We live with the flow. We will get there, but it's not there yet, right? Oh, you're learning a language. Oh, I want to learn how to speak tomorrow. I'm sorry, it will not happen. Oh, I'm doing good now, but you may fall tomorrow, and maybe you will get up again in a few days. I know it is hard, it is tough, but that's how it is. And we could, at these moments, we could look at other people and say, "Wow, this other family here is going through a much more difficult period than I am going through." So, um, let me see it through a different perspective, and let me look at it from this different angle, and maybe it will be a little less complicated, it will be a little easier for me uh, to see it, that we will get there. It's probably just not the right time yet. There's a saying from a Brazilian Portuguese Brazilian author. He says, in Portuguese, he says, uh, in the end, everything will work out. If it didn't work out yet, it's still not the end. So we are still we're still going. We're still getting there. We will get there. So let's keep it up.
Unfortunately, or we should say fortunately, I know you have to go to another commitment, right? Daniel told me earlier that you have to also speak at the Spirit Center there, and that goes to show how of a hard worker you are, right? And we would like to give you a couple more minutes just to say your goodbyes, just finalize, and then we will move on. So we will certainly check back with you later on, mainly Daniel, because Daniel will be scheduling the next one, right, Daniel? Daniel's like, yay! The follow up of the follow up and the follow up, hopefully. So, again, thank you for this amazing approach that you brought us. But we would like to give you a couple minutes just to say your goodbyes, and so we can move on to the next part of our meeting here, too. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
my
words
words
are
are
just
just
of gratitude. I'm very grateful to be here, um, virtually, but being here with you, being present. Cannot feel your warmth, but I see your warmth, and I'm very glad that I was here. I'm very glad that I was able to speak, and I am speaking to myself. Um, and I hope that these words, these sentences, these ideas can touch every single one of you in a good way, so that we can keep the focus on what's important in life: love, love, and love. That's what keeps the world moving. So the more we love, the more we make this world a better place. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you for everything. And I hope to see you soon, virtually or physically, one of these days. Have a good night.
Thanks again, Mackenzie. We'll connect later on. Say hello to the family. Say hello to all of friends over there in Massachusetts. And we would like to move on to our end of our meeting today. We would like to say a prayer/visualization so that we can finalize today. Because of the house being full today, we were not going to have our passes. It would be kind of hard to move around. So we'll just pray together, right? We'll ask Daniel to put on the music a little. Thank you for turning off the light. As we come to this end, let us give thanks for the opportunity that each one had to step outside of our own selves. Still analyzing how much we have in our lives, how much we are, how much we give of ourselves, how much we give of what we have. Put into perspective of how much we all receive from our dear Creator.